Can you tell? I just love that. And I see a lot of smiles, so I think many others do as well. And certainly Easter seems to be the real big day for many people to celebrate life. Now, when people first come into spiritualism, and I know I wondered about it too, just how do we feel about the major Christian holidays of Christmas and Easter? Well, I'll tell you about Easter. If you didn't hear about Christmas, that means you weren't here. Springtime. I mean, Easter is kind of the culmination of everything spring, isn't it? We just have all of nature coming out in fresh green leaves on trees, and places in the country where there's snow, sometimes tulips, daffodils are coming up through little remnants of snow. It's a very popular holiday with a lot of people because, well, yeah, the little peeps and the little ducks are precious, but everybody wants that Easter basket. And the eggs, not so much. They're pretty, but nowadays times change. A lot of them are plastic, and people don't always go through that ritual that's so sloppy and so messy and so much fun, coloring eggs. Eggs are certainly a symbol of a new life and a new beginning. And so as we see all the decorations everywhere we go, it seems, we keep being reminded, wow, Easter is coming. Well, I know from days, many moons ago, when I did participate in Christian services, it was a big deal. Easter was a huge deal. And everybody in the church put together special music programs, special decorations, and so forth. And we don't quite go to that extreme. In our view, every day is a celebration of life. Because as spiritualists, we know, even in our principle, we refer to the so-called dead. There are several of us that are not crazy about that terminology. But the fact remains, the physical body, yes, at some point gives up and gives up. But that spirit within never has to give up. We have so much to look forward to be in the world of spirit, knowing we will see loved ones we want to see, knowing we will be surrounded by the people that we have been drawn to, knowing that we will be in a place that our own thoughts, words, and actions have prepared for us. Now, I don't know about you, I love jewelry and I love bling, but I've never particularly been focused on streets of gold and pearly gates and a jeweled throne. That just never really appealed to me. But I do want to be able to see people that I loved here on this earth plane. I'm looking forward to meeting some of my teachers, my master teachers and my earth teachers. So we know there's a lot to look forward to. We know we don't need to rush it. We know that we are meant to have lots of varying experiences here on this earth plane, and that's what helps us learn and grow in our understanding. And don't think you're just going to be floating around on a cloud somewhere, strumming a harp, or reading True Story magazines. We still have things to do in the world of spirit. First of all, of course, we're going to want to come back and check on our loved ones that are still here on the earth plane. When given the opportunity, we may want to offer some words of guidance or encouragement, or simply that brief message of love, because that's what it's all about. In spite of all the horror stories and movies and TV shows, It's a beautiful thing. There's nothing spooky about it. There certainly is nothing evil about it. My grandparents loved me many years ago when they were on this earth plane. I know they still do. I'm sure they watched me muddle through as best I could some situations and probably shook their heads and tisk. But we're human. That's how we learn. Hopefully we'll get that lesson the first time so we don't have to keep repeating it. But we do celebrate life. We do. Now, Easter for a vast majority of people in this country particularly are Christian. And so they celebrate this day that Jesus triumphed in spite of all the hatred, the punishment that was instilled upon him because he kind of bucked the system and questioned the powers. He went through a horrific experience, according to the Bible. Spiritualists refer to Jesus as Jesus of Nazareth, because in that day a lot of people were named Jesus, a lot of men. And so that was kind of the identifier. Jesus was also referred to the Son of David. This even by the Gospels that described the virgin birth. So we have to always keep in mind that the story of Jesus' birth and the story of his physical death and resurrection, there was conflicting information in the sacred text. To some people it's very sacred, called the Holy Bible. But we have to keep in mind, this scripture was certainly translated from language to language to language, and it was written well after Jesus was here on the earth plane. Apparently, a couple of the writers did keep a journal of some sort, and they went back and referenced their journal. They thought more people need to know about this, so I'm going to write it down. But there are conflicting stories. As I think if I told you of one particular circumstance and described it the way I remembered it, and asked you to write it down, I bet we'd have no two that would be alike. But profoundly, Jesus touched many, many people. A spiritual man, a spiritual, sincere man who did not want power. He didn't want glory. He wanted to touch people in a very loving, one-on-one way. Of course, the people in power at that time, they ruled out of fear. I mean, that's how you keep people in line, right? They know what's going to happen. And unfortunately, nowadays, some religions still want to keep that power and control by instilling fear in the people who worship a certain way. We don't. We believe that God is love. We believe that God is understanding when we make mistakes. Now, of course, the secret is, if you're doing something really nice for somebody else, you don't do it with the thought of, oh, I'm going to get a lot of attention for doing this, or I'm going to maybe even get a reward for doing this. Then see, it kind of negates the importance of whatever we accomplished. We want to do things because they're the right thing to do. We want to help others, not hurt them. And sometimes we hurt them anyway, completely unintentionally. I certainly hope God understands that, because there have been a couple of things in my life, at least a couple, that I look back on now and I think, I'm not looking forward to facing my guides. They know more about me than I know about myself. But a couple of times in our lives, we may do something we're not that proud of, and there's no way to fix it. There's no way to go back and undo it. So we have to learn from that and hopefully never repeat it again. Jesus is referred to as the Son of God, and sometimes the only Son of God. He never said that. Nowhere in the Bible did Jesus ever say, I am the only Son of God. He never said it. It was said about him by people who were impressed with the spirituality of this man who walked the earth, who grew up a pretty normal kid with sisters and brothers, who was very intelligent because he was of the Essenes people, and they did value education. So perhaps he was a little more enlightened than many other children in his age group, but it was only after he reached a certain age that he went away, as many spiritual leaders did in those times, and meditated and prayed. Not for 15 minutes, for days. You know, if we would take just a few minutes to meditate every day, we would see such a change within. We would be so enlightened. We would be so nice to other people. We wouldn't have road rage. We wouldn't have jealousy. We wouldn't have envy. We could elevate ourselves. Well, it's so much easier. It's like going to someone's house and thinking, well, you know, she's not much of a housekeeper. And yet we go home and see our own cluttered mess and we don't think anything of it. It's home. So it's so easy to get caught up in judging other people. And Jesus didn't judge. He never judged. And when other people were wanting to stone someone to death, he'd say, wait a minute, anybody here never do anything wrong? Imagine that. Nobody could look him in the eye and say, I haven't. So Jesus got it. He got that we are human, and he taught love and enlightenment. Now, spiritualists do like to focus on this story of the crucifixion, not because of the horrible story of it, but over a couple of days, a few days, Jesus taught so many lessons. Prophecy. He's at the Last Supper, and he's telling his disciples what's going on and what is going to happen. Well, they loved him. They didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to hear it. You know, oh, you're imagining things. Oh, come on, it's bad. It's not that bad. Jesus knew what was going to happen. There are varying descriptions of what happened once Jesus did. His physical body died. And through the kindness of someone else, he was the first body, physical body, to be buried in this cave that did have several other places that had been chiseled out. Now we're told that this huge boulder had been put in front of the cave door. In reality, in those days, how could anybody move a huge boulder? They seem to think, historically, that it was a giant stone wheel. Yes, it would still take some momentum and strength to roll it up on edge, like a tire, to lay a body in there, and then to move the stone back. Well, some of Pilate's guys went to him and said, you know, we've got a concern about this. This man had such a following, and he kept saying these things were going to happen, and people believed him. And, you know, if suddenly he's not in that tomb, he wins. Politics even now. So they sealed it. He said, well, told the soldiers, go and seal this tomb, and we don't want anybody coming and going. Apparently they did. I don't know how. Well, imagine, again, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all have varying descriptions of what happened next. Overall, we're told that people went to visit the grave and pay their respects to Jesus. We're told that his physical body was gone. We're told that at least one human-appearing form, again, others say two, that glowed with a light, and said, he isn't here. He isn't here. Well, that was pretty dramatic. It continued to get dramatic when Jesus started appearing to people who knew him. I mean, appearing like I can look at any of you and you can look at me, and we appear to be very solid. God bless you. Jesus was a master teacher. The whole point of this ordeal that he went through was to prove to people that life continues, and not just his life, everybody's life. Therefore, we need to think about what we're doing. Are we hurting people? Are we harming people? Or are we loving and helping people? That was the message. And certainly, whether you believe the traditional Christian teaching or accept spiritualism's teachings, they both want us to think about the hereafter. They both want us to live our lives to the best of our ability. We're here to learn. We're here to learn that we are all children of God. We are here to learn the importance of acceptance. Why would humanity all come from one woman, apparently in Africa? DNA. And yet we have different hair color and different skin color and different eye color and physical characteristics. But we're still all one. We all have that spark of the Creator within. You know, some people say, well, I could take a bucket of water out of the ocean and it wouldn't change the ocean any. In reality, we know now through science that everything is down to all these little tiny, tiny, tiny particles. If you take a drop of water out of the ocean, you've changed it. It's not the same. And aren't we like that? We're all this unit, this mass of human beings, and yet we have that bit of God within each and every one of us. And we forget that if somebody pulls out in front of us in traffic. Or we forget that if we've got a load of groceries or something and the person that goes out the door in front of us doesn't even look back, they just let the door slam. Now, are you one of those people that let people out in traffic? Do you hold a door? Do you pay attention? It's the little things in life that seem to set people off. And it's little things in life. And sometimes I think maybe we focus on the little things because it's pretty overwhelming to consider the magic and the majesty of this life that we've been given. It can be a little scary sometimes. People come into our spiritualist churches and they think, wow, this is a piece of cake. They don't believe in heaven or hell as physical locations. And woohoo, nobody's standing up there saying, you better do this and you shall not do that. It's up to me. Hot diggities. Then reality starts setting in. Ooh, it's up to me. And when we get that, when we really get that, so that every moment of every day and every night, that's in our thought process, that's when we start learning. And it's exciting. It's exciting to be able to look back on our life and realize, wow, now I understand why that happened. Now I get that. The Reverend Marilyn Autry wrote a wonderful book, River of Life, about natural law. And in our classes, that is required reading. And so many people have come in and said, well, you know, kind of start off a little bit dry. And by the next week, they've read more, and they come in and say, this is life-changing. Yeah. Yeah, all of her books are. But this one in particular, because it gives people the understanding. They can look back on events in their life and read about that particular law, that natural law, God's law. And that proverbial light bulb is going off everywhere. And it's exciting. It doesn't matter our age. It's exciting when we gain that realization. It helps. It really helps. And it gives us guidance. It illuminates the path. So we can see clearly where we need to go, where we want to go. Notre Dame, with this horrific fire, there was a lot of talk about the crown of thorns that apparently Jesus had to wear. And they say now there's not really any thorns left, and it's kind of encased in plastic because people want to kiss it. I'm not sure how Jesus feels about pieces of his garments, thorns from this crown, have been distributed throughout history, throughout time, in many churches as relics. Who needs a relic to remember something like that? Who needs a relic to focus on when you can have that love in your heart? I don't understand that. I don't understand that part of it. We have God all the time. Always. And I know another minister who's really going through a hard time right now, a lot of serious surgery. And this minister called and said, "I'm scared." And I said, "Well, what's wrong? Your surgery's over and you're feeling better. It's, going to take time, but you are improving. What's wrong?" And this minister said, "I don't feel spirit around me anymore." I reminded this person that when you've had a very lengthy and intense surgery, your body gets all kinds of chemicals and stuff put in it, and they're still always following medication to try to alleviate pain and so forth. But I reminded this person that spirit never lets us down. Never lets us down. In our darkest hour, in our darkest days, we don't need to go out there looking. We need to go within. Understand. Understand. Spirit was there with the surgeon. Spirit is there with all the caregivers, and Spirit is certainly there with this individual. We had a very, 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 very long talk. I've got to call today and say Happy Easter. It's human to be afraid sometimes. It is. And it's human not to be grief-stricken sometimes. It is. But we're not doing it alone. We're not doing it alone. We look around this church, and so many of us have gotten to know one another. But go within, because that's where God is. That's where you will get your encouragement, your hope. That realization that we are